Hey everybody, I finally got myself a new monitor, an ultrawide. I've wanted one for years. This one is an Asus ROG XG35VQ, 35 inch. On the bottom here, there's supposed to be like a big glowing red light. It looked really tacky, so I didn't use it. This monitor, it can go up, it can go down, it can tilt forward and back a little bit. I'll just show you that now. It's kind of hard to really do it because I'm trying to hold the camera with one hand and tilt it, and I'm not that great at it, but I think you can kind of see it there. It also goes side to side for a lot of room. It's pretty easy to get behind it and hook up things. There's a couple of HDMI ports, a display port, and I think a couple of USB ports. And it also has this little LED in the back, which is completely useless because you can't even see it even when it's dark. You can, if you look behind the monitor, you can barely see it, but you can't really see it. This activates the menu in the front. It's pretty easy to navigate. I haven't really messed around with a lot of these settings because I just want a monitor to look at, so I just kind of picked one of the video settings and I just went with it. Here are the stats for my computer. I have an Intel 8700K, 16 gigs of RAM, Asus Prime motherboard, a GTX 1080 Founders Edition, and that's the monitor, the ROG Strix. I'm recording all the gameplay footage with a
Do it.
shadow play.
Do it. Who cares about single-player games anymore?
This is like the desktop mode. You can see the black bars on the side. When I was on the other menu, they were white. So pretty much no content is made in ultra wide. So you're gonna have black bars on the side if you're watching movies and playing games. Some websites like Twitch, as you can see, has a built-in widescreen support, which is pretty nice. But again, and you see the full screen video still has the black bars on the side. Now you can stream in ultra wide, but I don't think very many people do that. I haven't actually gone out of my way to try and find the type of people. And we get the same issue when watching movies. I'm on Netflix right now, and as you can see, the black bars on the side. Now, different movies have different aspect ratios, so this is a Maniac, I believe, or Manic, or something like that. And as you can see, it's kind of widescreen in the middle, so you just kind of have to take what you can get on that. And there's no real way to see, like I'm looking through the movies here, it doesn't like tell you. Maybe if you go into the item description of each movie, it might have the different aspect ratios. But there is a higher tier plan, so maybe if you pay more money, you can get more 1440p content, but I'm not going to do that, so yeah, that's what I got. I also decided, before I started testing games, to try out the PlayStation 4, because that's the only console that I currently have, and as you can see, that's the PlayStation going really slow, but as you can see, it works perfectly fine. The monitor doesn't have any speakers, so you would have to plug in your headphones or use audio directly from the PS4, but you can play that way. As you can see, the feature here I'm trying to pull up is you can move the picture-in-picture to different sides of the screen. So you can have both going at the same time. You can also adjust the aspect ratio to make it bigger and smaller. I think in a moment here I'm going to pull up the picture by picture, so you can play it that way too, which is pretty neat. But there is a pretty big problem with this monitor. I guess all ultra wides. I don't know if you can tell it in this video, but this image is pretty stretched. I mean, you can get used to it if you want to, but it's not ideal. So at first I thought, hey, maybe it's just a setting. So I decided to go into the option menu and try and see if I can set the monitor to 14K. I mean, it's not a 14K monitor. I think it's like 3440 by 1440. But I thought, hey, maybe I can kind of upscale it somewhat to make it fit better. But as you can see, the option is grayed out. Now, it may not have a 2.0 cable, so that could be the reason, but I know the PS4 does not support ultra wide. So I also tried shrinking the image down, then going into game, but that didn't work either. Now, as you can see, now they're just bigger black bars on the side. It's still not a 16:9 ratio. Now, I know on some of these ultra wides you can do that, but on this one I just have the option of full and 4:3, which, as you can see, the 4:3 it's even more stretched, so that's not really a viable option. So I don't think I'll be playing PS4 on this. Now, for that PC gaming, what this monitor is actually for, I would recommend going to this site. It seems to have pretty up-to-date information on which games have ultra-wide support and which don't. Most games don't have native ultra-wide, but you can usually hack it. There seems to be a pretty big problem with the online competitive games. So a lot of games where the patch will work, then they'll upgrade the game, then the patch won't work, so you'll have to go hunting around. It can be a pretty big chore, but if you want to play games in ultra-wide on PC, that is an option. Now the first game here is No Man's Sky. Now you can see that flickering, that's not the game so much, that's just when I recorded the software, it did that, and I didn't want to re-record all this stuff because I had to do that twice, I messed up earlier. So, this is the difference in ultra-wide, way more real estate. Looks way nicer. A pretty big improvement, and this has native ultra-wide support. Now you may notice that the HUD is kind of stretched. That's pretty common on a lot of games. You'll be able to make the resolution wider, but since the HUD assets are not made in HD, they're not made to be ultra-wide, they'll still be the normal kind of low-res textures. So, I mean, you can get used to it. To me, it's not that big a deal, but to some people that may be a deal breaker. There's Tomb Raider and regular 1980 by 1020 or whatever the regular 1080p resolution.
Could be useful.
Now, as you can see here, playing games with ultra-wide has a pretty big effect on the GPU, so the frame rate will drop if you try and play it at a higher resolution. But really, the 1080 seems to be kind of strong enough to handle, if you're playing 60 frames per second, if you turn down the graphics, you could probably run everything, pretty much everything. But even all these games I'm playing here are more or less on ultra, and it runs fairly well, even at the higher resolution. Getting Monster Hunter to run in ultra-wide was a bit of a chore. It has to be patched in, there's no native support, and I kept getting downloading programs that were outdated over and over again. But eventually I was able to get it to run. You pretty much have to run the game, then run this other program that will resize the game, and you're good to go. Which will probably not work in the next patch, then you'll have to wait for someone else to fix that. Dark Souls is another game that took me a little while to get working. As you can see up at the top of the Unsqueezed program, that's what I'm running to get it to run in ultra wide. But I had problems with that. I still have problems with that. Sometimes when I boot up the game, it'll just give me an error message and my computer will crash. I have to reboot the computer and try again. It usually works on the second go, but I really don't think that's really an acceptable option. But since the game has no native support, you kind of have to do what you have to do. But I think this game looks pretty good in ultra wide. I feel it's definitely a game that plays better in ultra wide because it just looks better. Much like Dark Souls, I feel like this game does pretty good in ultra wide. Runs smooth, you get more detail. There's pretty much no problems. CD Projekt Red really outdid themselves when they made this game on pretty much every level. Yeah, not really much to say about this game. I just kind of tossed this in there because it looks pretty. Skyrim Remastered runs pretty good. This is actually It took me a while to get this to work actually because I had to edit some files in INI files to get it to work. It's actually pretty easy. You just go in there, you just tell it to change the resolution, then you have to tell it to change the physics a little bit, and then it just runs. But I tried doing some mods, and those gave me a lot of problems. I wasted a lot of time. But this is actually a pretty easy game. This and the Fallout 4 are pretty easy to get going in ultrawide. Even though I have like 3 mods installed, you can still see the performance is pretty good. So we'll see what happens when I throw like a ton of mods if I ever go back and play this game again. See if it still holds up in ultrawide. But this definitely, since it's an older game, I imagine, is really a good tech demo for ultrawide, and something you should try if you haven't played through the game yet, or if you're one of those weirdos that still play Skyrim over and over and over again. This would be a nice upgrade.
Well, that's taken care of. No thanks to you. Certainly not. But a true warrior would have relished the opportunity to take on a giant. That's why I'm here, with my shield brothers. An outsider, eh? Never heard of the Companions? An order of warriors. We are brothers and sisters in honor. And we show up to solve problems if the coin is good enough. Not for me to say. You'll have to talk to Kodlak Whitemane up in Jorvaskar. The old man's got a good sense for people. He can look in your eyes and tell your worth. If you go to him, good luck.
Fight with us and you'll have stories to tell. Come up to Jorvaskar.
Like a cool thing that I noticed that in some of these games, since the game isn't made to be an ultra wide, but the assets actually go past the screen. So you can see here I can move that up and down. I know Tekken 7 is another game with a lot of the text that comes and goes on the screen. You can see it go out of the frame and come back in, which is kind of neat. Now this game looks a little messed up because I had a bunch of mods that I don't have anymore, which is probably a good thing because then I wouldn't be able to show this stream. But the game runs pretty well too. I just kind of booted it in, ran through here, ran through another area, and went outside, and I didn't really have any problems.
What, you need something to take the edge off? Fred Allen, Hotel Rexford. I'll hook you up. Yes?
I should be a surprise to no one. Overwatch works perfectly fine at ultra wide. You have to up the field of view a little bit, but then you're pretty much good to go. I think it also detects ultra wide more or less automatically, so that's a plus as well.
Not your kind.
I'm back. That's how it's done.
Let's get to that outfit. Heroes never die.
Clearing the area.
Healing stream engaged.
Round 2. 1.
G'day, mate.
Score 1-1.
Here's another issue you run into sometimes with playing games at a 1080. As you can see, the desktop is showing in the background. Sometimes you get a black bar, sometimes you get a desktop, but there's not really much you can do. And sometimes the game will automatically stretch itself, but you have to kind of work with what you can. Now, just like Overwatch, Fortnite, I think it auto-detected my monitor and automatically went up. Either that, or it was very easy to set. Just go in, bump the resolution, and poof. Absolutely no problems. As you can see, the game runs fine. So that's pretty nice.
Let's get moving. We need to find Zavala, Ikora, and Cade. Cabal! This doesn't make sense. The Cabal conquer systems by blowing up planets. Whatever they want, it must be here, in the last city.
This is Commander Zavala. Civilians, report to evac points. Guardians, rendezvous in the plaza. Our city will not fall.
Cade!
Hey, you two. Give me a sec. Zavala's doing the hero thing in the plaza. Me? I've got a date with whoever's behind this. It'll be a short date.
Over here, Warlock. My armory is opened. Follow the path from there. It will lead you through the hangar to the plaza. I'll take care of these people. If the Cabal want war, give them war.
Final Fantasy 15 is definitely one of those games that takes a hit when you try and play it in ultra-wide. I think if I play it in 1080, if I turn the settings down a little bit more down from what they are now, I'd be getting closer to 90. But as you can see here, I'm getting about 45. Now I can bump the settings down and probably get 60, but I didn't really mess with that. But to my eyes, I'm not really like some hardcore pro gamer, so it still looks good to me.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
I'm not so sure it is.
Aren't nursery rhymes curious things? Like this one. From the deep, the Archean calls. Yet on deaf ears the god's tongue falls. The king made to kneel, in pain he crawls.
So, how do we keep him on his feet?
You need only heed the call. Visit the Archean and hear his plea. I can take you.
Okay, here is God Eater 2. Now this game was probably the biggest pain to get to go in ultra wide. As you can see by how poor the resolution of this game is, it is not meant to go to 4K or to ultra wide or anything like that. So I had to actually go in and edit the hex for the boot file, which I had no idea how to do. It took me a long time, but I got this one going. Although, as you'll be able to see in a moment, even in ultra wide, it still looks kind of low res, but the character looks a lot thinner than he did in the default settings, so I guess it is an improvement. But considering these are like PSP games up-ported, it's kind of not surprising they don't look all that great.
Transform your arc and fire at those simulacra. Attacks in gun form use oracle power. Always watch closely to make sure you don't tire yourself out. These are the absolute basics. Now go ahead and make use of them against the origami before you. Once you have mastered this training, you will join Blood out in the field.
Hey there! You were so freaking super amazing out there today. You're a newbie, huh? I mean, new to this. Blood Special Force. You know what I mean.
Huh? Hey! I've never seen you two around before.
Hi there.
Oh, you're the new recruits everyone's been talking about.
Yes, sir. We're both really excited to work with you, sir.
Here's the Xenoblade Chronicles X played on an emulator. It runs pretty darn good. Now you notice there's like a graphical glitch in the top right corner. That's not really the game. When I was playing the game, it was perfectly fine. That's some of the settings I have to make it go to ultra wide when I record the video, much like the No Man's Sky in the beginning of the video. It makes it look a little bit messed up, but when you're actually playing the game, everything looks great. So this is pretty much the ideal way to play this game if you haven't played it. I still haven't played through it yet, so one of these days I'm gonna actually play these games I show on here instead of just actually putting them in a video. And last, but of course not least, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. In my opinion, pretty much the best looking game in ultra wide, at least that I've seen. I'm always impressed by how this game looks. Don't mind Link's magically appearing clothes. This is a family stream, gotta keep it PG.
Our light, that must shine upon Hyrule once again. Now go.
Damn, that looks good. Now, a lot of these games that I've messed with, you can make them go ultra-wide, but I really feel like Breath of the Wild is the game to play in ultra-wide, especially on a pretty good PC. It just looks so good. Okay, I think that'll about wrap it up for this video. Thanks for watching. If there's anything else you'd like to see in ultrawide, if it's a game that I actually have, I'd be more than happy to put another video up. So, until next time.